Hey everybody, Joel here. It's Wednesday, and I think it's May 26th. I'm not positive. I haven't looked at my book yet. Let me see, hold on. Anybody remember what we had yesterday? Take it in stride, give up worry. I don't think it was called give up worry. Yeah, yesterday was about the insults. Oh my goodness, I apologize for yesterday. I got off into something traumatic that happened to me when I was young. Talking about things that people say to you that last a lifetime, and it had absolutely nothing to do with being offended or insulted because I love Jesus. So I hope you all understood that, okay? Just something that happened that has always been a very, very sad place in my heart. Okay, let me take a sippa, and I do believe we are on May 26, 2021. Let me take a sippa out of my Lady Viv cup. Isn't that a darling cup? Look what it says. Love, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13, 7, 8. So that's a little devotional from my friend Lady Viv this morning. Alrighty. Matthew 6:34. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Each day has trouble, but I'm going to tell you something. There's some days got way more trouble than others. Give up on worry. Are you a worrier? What kind of things do you worry about? Things that have already happened or things that might possibly happen in the future? You know, of course, that worry of any kind is a waste of energy. When you worry about things you have no control over, it pulls you away from faith in God, because worry and faith can't really hang out in the same space. So when you feel anxiety and worry creeping into your heart, just stop it. Yeah, right, like that's easy. Tell God that you're going to give the situation to Him, because you know He can take care of it. Don't waste today worrying about tomorrow. But you know, my worry is that maybe God doesn't totally understand the situation. Maybe if I just helped a little bit. Maybe if I gave God a little tip. Maybe if I gave Him some advice. Maybe if I told Him some things maybe He doesn't know. Huh? Definitely tell my husband. He wants to run away screaming. Quit, Joy, quit. But, you know, a woman's mind. Did you ever have marriage counseling when you were young? We had marriage counseling. We didn't hire it done. We didn't get sent for it or anything. Let me take a sip before I pour my fifth cup of coffee all over the rug. Isn't it even better when it's in a cup someone gave you because they love you? Okay, so here's the thing. We were married. Somebody said, why didn't you and Jerry have kids? I got a comment yesterday. I've always wondered why you and Jerry never had kids. Well, I'll tell you why Jerry and I never had any kids. We met, how did we meet? We met in a bar, sort of. You know how restaurants now have a bar in them, like Olive Garden has a bar, Applebee's has a bar, what are the other restaurants we go to? Cheddar's has a bar. Well, it was that kind of a bar. And it was right after work, and his ex-wife's name was Jeannie. She was a real beautiful, tall blonde. His ex-wife's name was Jeannie, and I met her before I met him. And she and I used to get together every Friday night after work. Her company that she worked for actually did that. The girls would get together and they would go out and have a drink or whatever after work on happy hour or something. And so somebody invited me. She didn't invite me to it. somebody else invited. That's a long story in itself, you guys, and it would confuse you to no end. I mean, it confuses me till I can't even hardly tell it. But anyway, somebody else said, I want you to come to this thing we have after work. Well, I didn't work with them. I mean, I had no business being there, but you could bring a friend or your husband or your boyfriend or whatever. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll go to it. And I wasn't a drinker. I never drank. I didn't usually go to clubs. I didn't smoke. I was a good little girl unless you talked to my mother. So this person said, come to this thing that we have. And of course, I always wanted to get married again. I always wanted a husband. You know, my life picture, you had to have a husband in it. A child had to have a mommy and a daddy, not just a mommy. And so it was real important to me to find, more than to find a husband for myself, I wanted to find a daddy for my daughter. That was my number one goal, find a daddy for my daughter. So all of these girls that I knew would say, well, you have to go to these clubs to meet anybody. So anyway, I went this one night to this bar, which was just, the restaurant then, I think it turned into a Hooters later, but it was called Whistler's. I think it was called Whistler's. My sister actually worked there when she was young as a waitress in the restaurant part. So whatever day this was, the group wasn't meeting. And Jeannie called me and she said, hey, I don't have Jerry this weekend. Jeannie and Jerry have a little girl named Jerry, which was a combination of Jerry and Jeannie. Jerry, J-E-R-E-E. She was, I think she was 2 and Tammy was 4. So she said, my ex-husband Jerry has Jerry this weekend, so meet me after work. So Jeannie and I were sitting at a table by ourselves. It wasn't a group. There wasn't anybody else. It was just me and Jeannie. And we were sitting there talking. And we're just chatting away. And there's nobody in there. I mean, it's right after work and people haven't come into the restaurant yet. And we're kind of like the only ones there. And this man walks up to our table. And I look up and it's this guy in this white pharmacy coat with blonde hair and blue eyes and this white pharmacy coat. And I thought, well, who the heck is he? And she looked up and she said, oh, Jerry. And he said, you forgot to leave me the keys. I can't get in to get diapers for Jerry or something like that. And so she said, oh, here's the key. I'm sorry. And then she said, oh, by the way, I'd like you to meet my friend Joy Dyer. My name was Dyer then. I'd like you to meet my friend Joy Dyer. And I'm like, wow, he really looks bad in that white coat. He's got such white skin. That's what I was thinking. After I married him, we had no more white pharmacy coats. So anyway, I just said, oh, hi, nice to meet you. So it was quite a while later, 3 to 4 months, some time period. And meanwhile, Jeannie and I would take turns. Here I'm getting off on a completely different story again, aren't I? Jeannie and I lived just like a mile from each other. She lived in a condominium, and I lived across the street and down the road in a poor dominium, just a little apartment. And she had like a 2-story condominium. And so we used to babysit for each other. So she would babysit my little girl if I had a date, and I would babysit her little girl if she had a date. Okay, so we were good friends. We knew each other. So about, I don't know how much longer it was, 3, 4 months, I get this phone call. And it's him. It's Jerry. And he said, I don't know if you remember me, but my name's Jerry Bernhardt. I used to be married to Jeannie. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember meeting you at Whistler's. And he said, yes. And he said, I don't know if you'd be interested, but he said, I'd like to take you out sometime, if it would be okay, or, you know, whatever their line is. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I said, I could never go out with you. I said, Jeannie's like my best friend. I couldn't go out with you. And he said, Jeannie gave me your phone number. So then I thought, oh no, Jeannie gave me my phone number. I'm gonna have to go out with him now. Oh my goodness. So I kind of felt pressured to go out with Jeannie's ex-husband. This is an insert. Hopefully a really short one. I just edited this whole clip, and I started to tell you something like I always do and forgot to tell you. I started to tell you about, we went to a marriage seminar. I just wanted to tell you real quick, it was because our church We went to a church called Copwalk back then. And there were these marriage counselor people that went there, and they were married to each other, and that's what they did for a living. So they used to have every year this marriage counseling thing. It would be in a hotel somewhere nearby where our church was, and married couples would go and they would stay in the hotel. They had like these suites. They were real nice suites. They had like the little living room and the little kitchenette and the bedroom. And then down in one of the conference rooms in the hotel, you would go to these meetings on marriage counseling. Well, one of the things that I learned from that I have always remembered and thought was just dead set correct. He said that men and women's brains are totally different in the way they work. He said a man's brain is like a set of little boxes, and all the boxes are closed. And when the man decides he wants to do something, he will open one of the boxes, and whatever's in that box will come out. This is so Jerry. And he will have that on his mind. He will talk about that. He'll work on that. He'll do that. And then when that's done, he'll close that box, all done, over with, and he'll open up a next box. Well, one of those boxes can be, he had a great big fight with his wife that morning. She was all mad and crying and carrying it on. You hate me, I need you, and I miss you, blah, blah, blah. So he gets in his car, he drives to work. Well, he just puts the lid on that box. He goes to work and he opens up his work box and he does his work. He comes home that night and he expects to walk in the door, open up the box with, hey, I'm in love with you, let's go to bed right this instant. And she's in the couch in the heat, bawling her eyes out. And he's like, well, what the heck's wrong with you? Because the box that happened that morning is completely shut. Does that make any sense to you guys? I mean, I'm telling a long description very short. Now, that's the man's brain. Here's the woman's brain. The woman's brain is every single thing that happens is like a long, long string, wire, cobweb, whatever how you want to think it. And so in the morning they have this big fight. After that happens, she has a problem with the kids and the school bus breaks down and she has to take them to school, and after that the washing machine breaks, and after that she has a fight with her friend, and after that something else happens, and finally her husband comes home. Well, her brain is all of those things. All of them. She hasn't forgotten any of it. She's been dwelling on it all day long. The wire is like electric, and it's open and it's charging, and she can't shut it down. And he's like, well, what's your problem? See? Isn't that good? Isn't that good? I don't remember the rest of it, but I will never forget that. All right. One other thing I needed to tell you to make this story complete. I was invited to the bar party thing that this company went to after work by a different person. I don't even know who it was, invited me. The first time that I went, Jerry's wife walked up to me and she said, I know you don't know me, but I've heard you are so-and-so, because she was a friend with this person that invited me. And the person that invited me told her about me. I guess she saw I was there alone. And she came up to me and she said, my name is Jeannie. And she said, there's this gentleman that wants me to go with him to this other club. And she said, I don't know him that well. And she said, he has a friend. And she said, I thought it would be better if two of us went instead of one. Would you mind going with me, with these two complete strangers, to this other club? It was like 5 miles away. It was another place that we used to go, only you could go there and you could dance, you know. And so, and me, I'm just, you wouldn't even have known I was the same me back then. I was so scared, so shy, so timid, so didn't know anything about anything. And so, and she's tall and gorgeous, and you know, I'm short and scared and nervous. And I said, well, okay. And so anyway, that's how I met her. And so then after that is when we started babysitting each other's kids. So this time that we went, that I'm telling you about, where I met Jerry, this was many, many months after, okay? That wasn't the first time I met her. I just wanted to clarify that. Hey, you want to see her picture? Right here, Jerry's 2 wives. Crazy story, huh? So anyway, I said, okay, fine. So we had a date, and 3 months later we were married. But while we were dating, which was a very short period, I mean, it didn't take me long to figure out he was one in a trillion. I wasn't letting him go. In fact, I kept trying to get them back together. I'm like, you're the nicest woman I know. You're the nicest man I know. What the heck is with you two? Why are you apart? But that wasn't working out, so I decided I'd just keep him. But he asked me one time, he said, how many kids did you plan on having? I said, oh, I've always wanted 4 kids. I've always wanted 4 kids, and I wanted my first one to be a boy so he could like protect my little girl, but obviously I had a little girl first. But I said, I've always wanted to have 4 kids. And he said very seriously, he said, well, you have a child and I have a child, and we're both divorced, and if our marriage doesn't work out and we have a child, then we're going to have a child from here and a child from there and a child from here, and what happens if you get married again in the future? And he said, I really don't want to have any more children. So I think like the next day he went and had a vasectomy. So I don't know, things just are as they are. And then Tammy had 3 kids, and so I figured between Tammy and her 3 babies I had my 4, okay? And his daughter Jeree has 2. We've been in their life 0, absolutely 0. Another whole long, sad, broken heart issue, but I won't go there today. So what were we talking about? We were talking about worrying. How on earth? Oh, somebody said, why didn't you have children? Why didn't you and Jerry have children? So that's the short explanation of that, okay? And then we became so busy. First, I worked for an oil company. He bought pharmacy. He didn't own a pharmacy till after we were married. And I worked for an oil company, and we bought our first pharmacy. And then later on, we bought our second pharmacy. And then later on, I quit and I started working with him. And then later on, we sold our 2 pharmacies and got into the medical equipment business. And then we both worked together 24/7 practically until we're where we are now. Okay, so another long story short. But worry. Worry, worry, worry. I know. I think there should be like different kinds of worry, that you shouldn't just call it worry. You know, there should be one that's like a necessary worry, an important worry, a worthless, don't bother with it worry, this doesn't really matter worry. But the Bible says don't worry. And most of the time, I don't have a problem with that. But, you know, some things that are such a prayer, such a major issue that you know God can fix. You know He can fix it. You have no doubt in your mind about that. But it just seems like if He would take a few tips from you, you know, He could accomplish it faster. You know what I mean? So you know that I now have a wonderful relationship with my child again, because I've learned how to be a different kind of a mother and not be judgmental and critical and say you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. I don't do that anymore, no matter what. Because the Lord told me my children are adults and their choices are their choices, and I'm not responsible for them. And so that has just set me free. But his daughter doesn't know that yet, I guess. She's just, I don't know, long story there. Jeannie, Jerry's ex-wife, married a doctor. He was 15 years older than she was at the time, and he was very, very into country clubs and Beaux-Arts balls and traveling all over the world. And so Jeannie made Jerry call him Daddy. She decided that he'd hung the sun, the moon, and the stars, and she wanted him to be Jerry's father. And so she had Jerry call him Daddy from when she's, you know, 3-year-old child. And so to her, he was always her dad. I had a fit. I worried. I thought it was wrong. I wanted Jerry to fight. I wanted him to do something, but he didn't. Jerry is a very, 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 very unlike me person. You know, he just said, I want Jerry to be a happy little girl. And I don't want her to feel like there's any kind of a fight from me because of her living with him. and calling him daddy. I just want her to have a happy life and have a mommy and a daddy together in a house and grow up happy. And that's what he wanted, and he didn't have a problem with it. So basically, he was willing to let her go. Just let her go. I wasn't. I was like, she's your child, you should have her, we should have her more time. I can't believe it, you didn't tell her that's not her father, she shouldn't be calling him father. I said, Judy would have a fit if she called me mom, my gosh, don't you? And Jerry would just say, Joy, let it go, let it go. I'm not going to put that stress on my daughter. So, therefore, we have seen our grandchildren on that side probably less in their whole life, and they're both in college now, and in their entire life we've seen them less than a total of 1 week of their lives. So another very, very hard part of me that's had to soften and crumble and let go and turn over to God. And I am just believing that it's going to change. I'm not dead yet, Jerry's not dead yet, and the stepdad is dead. The doctor, he is dead. So I don't know. Whatever God wants, however God wants to deal with it, I honestly have. I let that go years ago. I had to. I had to let that go years ago because it was eating me alive. For him, I wasn't bothering him, it was bothering me. I'm the worrywart around here. Is that a big shock? All right, there I go again, just on and on and on and on. Hey, my friends, try to cast that care on him. And don't worry about it. And do you know what's coming through this window today? Finally, finally, there is sunshine coming through this window. I'm so excited. So I'm going to finish my quilt. This part up here is all sewn together. This, and this, and this, and this are all just sewn into rows. So they all have to be attached to the top. And then I've got 4 more rows to go. And my mystery quilt will be ready to put on the long arm. So that'll be next week. Okay, dear ones, I love you so much. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow. I didn't spill my coffee.